Sarah Palin, the great Sarah Palin from the great state of Alaska, has come out and endorsed Donald Trump. I did not watch the ceremony, the crowning ceremony. I did read the New York Times article that kind of went at length and gave statements from the Sarah Palin campaign. I'm drinking this wonderful coffee my wife made for me today. Sarah Palin is still a player, apparently. At some point, you would wonder, when does a group of people realize that your venerated hero is actually a bumbling buffoon? Apparently, it doesn't with Sarah Palin. Oddly enough, her son, I think his name Trap, whatever her son's name is, he was arrested today as well. So simultaneously, as she was endorsing Donald Trump, her son was arrested, I believe, on assault charges against a woman. But that's not the story. The story is her endorsement of Donald Trump. And allegedly, they believe this is going to give Sarah Palin is going to give Donald Trump the edge that he needs to beat out Ted Cruz in Iowa. Apparently, Sarah Palin still carries a lot of weight with evangelical voters and evangelicals. After a day like yesterday, where Donald Trump said 2 Corinthians instead of 2 Corinthians, he needs all the help he can get. And what better place to get it from another a colleague in the reality TV genre, Sarah Palin, to endorse, and as well as a pseudo leader, pseudo wannabe government official. I am afraid to know what position he's promising her. I guess it can't be more terrifying than John McCain tapping her for vice president. I think the only thing that could be scarier than vice president would actually be Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense. That would be terrifying. But he's giving her the edge. Ted Cruz, just yesterday, Ted Cruz was speaking very highly of her, saying that they're friends and that no matter what she decides, he will always be her friend. Well, I wonder what he's saying today now that she has given him the edge. And I'm going to be honest with you folks. The closer and closer we get to Iowa, the more realistic Donald Trump's nomination, legitimate nomination, not a third party run, not, just a straight out victory. His nomination seems more and more realistic. And I was reading tweets from Bill Kristol, where Bill Kristol is a conservative commentator who is on Fox News all the time. He is the establishment conservative. They really are scared shitless that Donald Trump may very well win this thing. And so now they're lamenting, he was publicly lamenting the fact that Donald Trump is actually going to win, or could win rather. And he's trying to Bill Kristol tried to lay this at the feet of Barack Obama, saying that the only way that a Donald Trump was made possible was because of a Barack Obama. Then I have to go all the way back and say, if we're trying to say that this incompetent caricature of a human being named Donald Trump is only made possible by the presidency of Barack Obama, which is a non sequitur, and I'll deal with that in a second, then how do you explain a Sarah Palin being tapped for VP in 2008? What led to Republicans stooping so low that they would get someone who couldn't even tell us what newspaper she read? So there's this desire to separate the establishment now from the monster they created, right? Sarah Palin best represents the monster that they created, which is a combination of ignorance, greater or lesser extent bigotry, and just rabid religiosity. That's who Sarah Palin is. And that's what she represents. And that's what she brings to Donald Trump in this endorsement. It's a powerful thing to be able to get up in a church and be able to speak with a religious conviction. And Sarah Palin does that. And she brings a horde, a legion of fans that are going to now support Donald Trump and give him the edge. But if we're blaming Donald Trump on President Obama, which makes no sense, but let's just go with that logic. How do you blame the Republican decision for Sarah Palin, who really has turned out to be the laughing stock of politics, for the last 8 years. The running gag, the punchline, the nonstop punchline is Sarah Palin. Just say Sarah Palin, and anyone with common sense would start laughing because Sarah Palin has none. But yet she's venerated, she's lifted up as this great hero of conservatism. I'm sorry, Bill Kristol. It is not President Obama's fault that Donald Trump is leading. It is the fault of the Republican Party. For the last 40 years, you guys have constantly and incessantly pandered to the religious right, as well as used the Southern strategy to throw dog whistles to the bigot contingency. And that is the makeup of Donald Trump's coalition. There's a third part of Donald Trump's coalition that really, they aren't religious zealots. They aren't just imbecile bigots. They're just angry white men. And they're angry at their lot in life, right? They're angry and they feel like the government has cheated them, and they're tired of the Republican establishment. They're tired of the Democratic establishment, and they want Donald Trump because they just love the way he talks and they love the way he takes it to the establishment. Now, they're not mutually exclusive. I'm sure there's some great overlap between those three groups, but that makes up the coalition. You have those people who are finally awakened and said, really, voting for the Republican Party has done nothing for us economically. They go with Donald Trump from the Republican side. And then you have those religious zealots who really didn't care that he did not know 2 Corinthians from 2 Corinthians. You know, they just love the fact that he's, I don't know, that he says the Bible is his second favorite book or his first favorite book. And then you have that religious, you have that bigoted crowd that really enjoys his thinly veiled racism wrapped in political correctness. That is everything that I just described. The Southern strategy crowd, the religious zealot crowd, and the angry white man crowd, angry white woman crowd, that group. And then you have some strays, forgive me, I'll call them strays, the black conservatives who like Donald Trump. I call them strays, please, no one else call them strays. Let me get in trouble with that, not you. But the Republican Party has been pandering to this group for 40 years plus, really since Nixon's Southern strategy. And now you have a guy who has enough bravado to just crush your spineless, weak Jeb Bush, who was the expected, he was a heir apparent, right? It was a given that it was going to be another Clinton Bush year. And here comes Donald Trump to just, with his ego and his bravado, crush Jeb Bush. He's no longer in contention. And so that left the field wide open for who is the greatest religious zealot, who is the greatest gun nut, who's going to mobilize the bigot crowd, and who's going to mobilize the angry white men enough. Enter Donald Trump. You can't cry now that your creation has come back to haunt you. And now your creation has gone and picked up your other creation. Like, you guys created Donald Trump politically. You created Sarah Palin politically. And now they've made this marriage in Republican hell. And he very well may run away with all the way through Super Tuesday and just destroy the Republican establishment. And I don't feel bad about it at all. The only thing I think about it when I think about it is the fact that we need a candidate on the left that will destroy him to ensure that that type of ideology never gets into power. All right, moving on.